Welcome back. Unless you've been living on the rock for the past week or so, you know that Eliot Spitzer is back in a big way, and he's asking New Yorkers to leave his past just there, in the past. The question is, will they? And Dominic, you sat down with him. You've certainly known him over the years here when he was Attorney General, then Governor, and now he's going back City Comptroller. Holds it good for him, but still, he's got a conflicted sell, it seems.
Well, conflicted, but it seems like it's working. Like it or not, Mr. Spitzer is not only back, the primary is only, get this, Richard, less than 2 months away, and Mr. Spitzer is the clear front runner in the race for city controller. Here is part of what we discussed yesterday head on, the scandal. Are there more prostitutes involved?
No. And
only one?
No, look, Dominic, I've answered all these questions many times over the years. The record on that was set forth as alleged by in the various documents, and I'm not going back to rehash that, but that has all been out there.
In the moments after the scandal broke, what did you do?
I reflected. I was with my family, and very quickly decided, and this is looking back now 5 years, that I was going to resign because it was the only appropriate thing to do.
And Richard, we continue our conversation today. Spitzer does not like being called the love gov by the tabloids. And what does he say to the criticism that he and Anthony Weiner cannot be on the same ticket for the Democrats in the fall? That and much more. Governor, one of Mayor Bloomberg's pet projects has been the bike lanes around New York City.
Right.
As city controller, is that something you might try and audit, the effectiveness of bike lanes? And I mean, you know, you're a very innovative type guy. Yeah. So what will you do?
Well, you know, I hadn't thought about how one would audit the bike lanes. I guess certainly, look, in terms of the bikes themselves, you look how many people are using them, how many miles. There are certain metrics you can use. You'd have to give it a couple years to ramp up. Look, I will be very clear about this. I always had trouble changing gears when I was a kid. This was I did a triathlon once, and I did it all in one gear because so bikes have always been a little problematic for me. But this is, in terms of city transportation, look, I'm sort of policy wonk who loves that sort of stuff. I think we need to ask hard questions about how we can move people around the city better. When I was governor, we were trying very hard to fund the MTA. Public transportation, mass transportation is hugely important. Bike lanes are good conceptually. Are they working is a question that will be asked. A lot of people are saying, you know, they're cutting down on the flow of cars through some critical intersections, making them work better, well, making the bike program work better, well, things we will certainly look at. One of the things that Mike has done extraordinarily well is to, as you just said, to be innovative. Being innovative and willing to try things is a necessary component of good governance, and he gets very, very high marks for that.
Governor Spitzer, again, I've known you a long time, but when the tabloids, and all the tabloids, we know what they can do. Right. When they call you things like the love gov, does that hurt your feeling?
Sure it does. You know, it's, but you can't get into politics and worry about hurt feelings. It's anybody, you know, I said last week, I guess it was Monday when I was first really dealing with the media assault, perhaps is the right word. I said, look, I got skin as thick as a rhinoceros, and you need that. I don't know if my skin was that thick when I got into this back, you know, I met you probably in 1994, and even before that, perhaps. Mm-hmm. But you live and learn. You realize that not to, you know, dump on the tabloids in any way. They're part of the psyche of New York. We love to read them. I'm not sure we believe them all the time. I think we understand the role they play. You know, there's the old, when you see a bad headline, you say, don't worry about it. Today's tabloid is used to wrap fish tomorrow. That's what, you know, people used to say. And there is that element. Schadenfreude is part of the psyche that has taken over. So be it.
Governor, half of my time is done. I only have 5 minutes left. I'm going to move as fast as I can to get to as much as I can. Some have said the Democratic ticket cannot have you and Weiner on it at the same time. Right. How do you respond?
You know, the public will make that determination, and I understand. Look, I understand, you know, why folks say that. But as I say, primaries are primaries. Public will determine who is on the ticket and where, and that's what democracy is all about.
Now, you have stated that this scandal was a result of you couldn't control urges. That's what you've said, basically. So, Governor, how can people trust you with the money if you can't control your urges?
Well, look, I think the public can look at the totality of my record, and I think they understand distinctions, different types of what happens, where, when, how. It's been 5 years. It is, again, I think a question of the totality of a record where the Comptroller's office is perhaps uniquely fitted to the sorts of issues that I dealt with as Attorney General. And the notion that protecting the pension funds, investing them wisely, doing the audits, ensuring the policies are working, overseeing the public fisc, I think that in the independence of this position is what's critical. And what is the hallmark of my candidacy is that I'm independent of the major powerful forces who might not want an independent controller. And I think that the array of forces in this campaign speaks to that very issue in terms of who lined up very quickly to say, oh, we might not want him to be the controller. You know,
Okay.
it I think made an argument for me.
So, Governor, for argument's sake, you're now city controller.
Right.
What's the next job after that?
Ready to feed the cows after that. You know, Dominic, everybody asks, and you know, I don't say that. We have 20 cows upstate. I love feeding them on weekends when I can get there.
Would you like to be mayor one day? Maybe governor again?
Here's how I'm answering that question. I am running for a job I want to do, a job I want to perform as superbly as I can. I have not thought for 1 second about a job after that. I didn't when I was Attorney General. I didn't when I was governor. If you think about something after, you're not doing the job right. And I don't say that glibly or to be cliched. It's a reality.
Governor, I close on this. You have a book out.
I do.
Now tell me, what's the point of this book?
I wrote it in the past number of months after I've been, like you, a TV host, which I thoroughly enjoyed on CNN and then at Current. And when Current was acquired and I stopped hosting the 8 o'clock show there, this past January, I said, and last year I said, you know, I have a few months open here, and I want to try to capture the essence of what we did in the Attorney General's office, but put it into a more theoretical construct. So I use the cases we made, but not merely to retell the stories. I use them as points of departure for a theoretical argument about understanding markets, because that is really where we went astray in the 80s, 90s, and the decade leading up to the cataclysm of 2008. We misunderstood how markets work.
Now, Spitzer has failed to file an ethics report on time with the city's Conflict of Interest Board. He is one of several candidates who has not yet filed a financial disclosure report by last Thursday's deadline. Now, Richard, according to the Wall Street Journal, a lawyer for the campaign says Spitzer will file in the coming days.
All right, we're going to talk about your conversation with Mr. Spitzer and also the aforementioned Mr. Weiner. We're after this quick break. Stay with us.